Lions fans are upset with this draft grade.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's good, everybody? It's another week of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you. Today is Cinco de Mayo, Monday, May 5th into Tuesday, May 6th. We appreciate all of you for checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen. And again, checking us out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, the Odyssey app. Shout out to those of you that watch us on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. And thank you to our everydayers that are out there that watch and listen to the podcast or listen to the podcast daily. That includes my guy, Kyle Campion. I met Kyle today at SVS Vision in beautiful Shelby Township, Michigan. I've got a little eye problem here. My left eye, I got this bad sty in my eye on top of my eyelid. I had to go to SVS today. And Kyle was there. And he's like, what are you up to today? He's like, yeah, we got to fix your eye for the YouTube channel. I'm like, wait a minute, YouTube channel? He says, yeah, big Locked On fan. So appreciate that, Kyle. Thanks to all of you that are out there. We're going to attempt to do another call of the day tomorrow. We've got a lot of good submissions. So please, if you want to be our call of the day and give us your thoughts on the Lions, please do so at speakpipe.com/Derry, DERY podcast page. Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus, NFL draft analyst, football analyst. We love Trevor. He's a Locked On Podcast Network alum. He's going to join us today on the show. And we want to get his thoughts on the draft because Trevor really studies it. He's down at the Combine. He's down at the Senior Bowl. We'll get Trevor's thoughts on the Lions draft momentarily. But first, everybody up in arms. By the way, Matt Derry with you. Great to be with you. Everybody up in arms about The Athletic. And look, you go to some of these websites, they're churning out draft articles nonstop. PFF does a ton. TheAthletic.com does a lot. We had Nick Baumgardner and Colton Pouncey from The Athletic on last week. So Austin Mock, who actually used to be at PFF and is now at the Athletic, put out an article on analytical winners and losers from the draft last week and grades. And he gave the Detroit Lions the lowest grade of any NFL team. He had 4 Fs: Dolphins, Jaguars, Saints, and Lions. And he had the Lions at the bottom. He gave the Lions a draft grade of an F. And my buddy Al was the first one to tell me, tip me off on this. So I went in and read about it. The way that Austin does the grades is as follows. Quote, the grades assigned to each team are on a relative scale. Our methodology behind these grades includes assigning value to each draft slot and each prospect picked, as well as the value of the position the prospect plays, and coming up with a composite value, which is represented by a grade, end quote. I have no freaking clue what that means, but I can tell you I have not seen anybody give the Lions an F other than Austin Mock of The Athletic. I will attempt to get Austin on this week. You know that's what I do. We'll get Austin. But he gave the Browns an A+, the Giants an A+, Tennessee an A, Panthers an A, Falcons an A, Packers A-. In the division, Bears got a B-, Vikings got a D-, and your Honolulu Blue and Silver Warriors got an F. As far as what Austin wrote about the Lions picks, quote, it's fair to question whether I should doubt the Lions draft strategy after the run they've been on the past few years, but out of their 7 picks, 4 were considered reaches by our consensus board, including all 3 in the top 70. They also lost quite a bit of value in the trade market, highlighted by their big move up for wide receiver Isaac Tesla. They lost the 4th most value in trades during the draft, and the 3 teams below them either gained a first rounder or had the chance to draft Travis Hunter. The players may wind up being good fits, but I still think this was bad process. And the chance to draft Travis Hunter, I don't know what they're talking about there. He said that 4 were considered reaches, including all 3 in the top 70. So he's basically saying Tyreek Williams was a reach at 28. Tate Ratledge was a reach at 67. And Isaac Tesla was a reach at 70. I don't know why he would say, or excuse me, 57 for Ratledge. Sorry, not 67. Tate Ratledge at 57 is not a reach. He was the second best guard in the draft. He's a very good football player. I think the Miles Frazier pick in the 5th round is very, very good. I think the Dan Jackson pick in the 7th round is very, very good. Tyreek Williams was the 5th best defensive tackle, and the 4 best D tackles all went above him. It's not like the Lions passed on one of the top 4 D tackles. All those guys were drafted when the Lions were on the board at 28. Giving the Lions an L. If you don't like the Lions draft and you don't think these players are good, fine. Mel Kiper gave him a C something. I can disagree with that. I'm not giving the Lions an A. I think the Lions got a B, B minus in my opinion. I want to see if Tesla plays. I want to see if giving up three third-round picks for him works out. But an F, I think, is harsh and a little ridiculous. But that's one man's opinion. That's why we're talking about it on this very program. We're going to get the thoughts of Trevor Sikkema because his thoughts are always warranted right here on this Monday edition of Locked On Lions. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I told you on Locked On Lions the other day about the Indiana Pacers. Telling you right now, keep an eye on them. But we will talk to Trevor from PFF coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. But first, our broadcast today of Locked On Lions is brought to you by our friends at Upwork. Are you scaling your business and it requires the right expertise at the right time? With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need an extra hand or two for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Want to find the right talent? If you need help with a marketing campaign, let's say, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results in the past. Fast and easy hiring, posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple qualified candidates that you can choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business. Do it today. All right, here's one man that will not be giving the Lions an F on his draft grades. Trevor Sikkema, Pro Football Focus, NFL analyst, draft analyst. Always love talking to him. And, of course, a Locked On alum, giving us some time today on a Monday edition. Trev, great to see you.
I appreciate you having me as always, Matt. Looking forward to it.
So before you came on, Austin Mock, and I like Austin at The Athletic, giving the Lions an F grade using an analytical model based on trade-ups and reach and everything else. Is that a little bit too harsh?
Yeah, I think an F is harsh. I really do. I give the Lions a B+, and really the only reason I think it's a little bit less of an A is it kind of comes down to the Tesla pick, right? I mean, I'm sure that you guys have talked about that plenty. It's like, okay, well, you drafted him in the 3rd round. I think the 3rd round was probably the top of his range anyways, but you gave up those 2 future thirds to get there to be able to do it. Now, I think some people will say like, oh, one of them was a bonus 3rd from Aaron Glenn, the minority hiring and them getting a 3rd round pick back. But still, no matter how you slice it, you still gave up a 3rd round pick. You gave up 2 3rd round picks next year to make it happen. And so like normally analytical models are going to hate trade ups anyways, because I think they're going to tell you that you would much rather just have more darts to throw at the dartboard. I mean, the draft is a guessing game. You never know until the guy becomes a pro. There's a reason why, not every number 1 overall pick turns out to be a Hall of Famer or even the best player from that draft class. But even that, man, I think that's kind of harsh. I think that the areas where I would probably see that is like, okay, Tyreek Williams, you draft him in the 1st round. He's not really going to be a pass rusher for you. He really wasn't that at Ohio State. And so I think that probably weighs heavily into an analytical formula. How much are you affecting the pass game? Tate Ratledge, a little bit undersized for the position, more of a zone blocking guard. Didn't have like the greatest PFF grades, but had very solid PFF grades his entire time when he was starting. So I guess like when you look at that, yeah, you could nitpick those a little bit, even outside of the Tesla pick, but I don't know. I don't know how you get to an F, man. I really just, I do not know how you get to an F.
What was your favorite pick? Well, I want to go through all the players with you because that's what you do, but was there a favorite pick of yours that the Lions had?
Honestly, like, and not to take away from the guys they drafted in the first 2 days, but like, I love the Lions day 3 stuff. Miles Frazier, I think, is a perfect player for them on the interior offensive line. I really did not like Miles Frazier's tape basically until this last year. I didn't love what I saw in 2023, but really loved how he played in 2024. I thought he was a lot more powerful, a lot more consistent. If they want to lean into being more of a power running team, in my opinion, they have the ability to do that. I think Ratledge is a little bit more of an athlete first type of a player. He's not as much of a people mover as Miles Frazier is, but shoot, long term, man, I think that he is fantastic for them and a really great depth interior player, a good scheme fit, a good culture fit. I think the same of Ahmed Hassanin. This is somebody who was sort of one of my guys for day 3. You know, the background, I'm sure a lot of Lions fans know, you know, he grew up in Egypt. He was a weightlifter when he was in Egypt. He was one of the top CrossFitters in the country of Egypt for his age when he was getting into CrossFit and weightlifting. And then his brother who lived over in America was saying like, hey, you know, if you come over here, you can play American football and you can get involved in that. And so he ended up coming over to America, started playing high school football a little bit, obviously played well enough to get to Boise State. And I thought this past season for Boise State, he was excellent. Dan Jackson, to me, is a really nice depth safety. Again, somebody who embodies what the Detroit Lions are all about. He's a former walk-on at Georgia, worked on his way to not only get a scholarship, but be a rotational player. And then this past year, he was a starter. And so those 3 picks, I thought they were not only great value, but I thought they were great scheme fits and culture fits for what the Lions try to gravitate towards when it comes to prospects and players.
Trevor Sikkema with us from PFF. You referenced Tyreek Williams earlier. Lions take him at 28. Didn't move up, although Brad Holmes had intimated there were some pass rushers we wanted. We tried to move up and get. Some have said maybe they were trying to get Shamar and others, but settling on Tyreek at 28. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't mind it. And them kind of having the itch to get aggressive in the first round maybe explains a little bit of why they were so aggressive when they traded up for Tesla, right? I think that when you get the juices flowing on night 1 of the draft and you're like, okay, let's try to trade up, let's call some teams, and you're thinking it's going to happen, then it doesn't. You kind of want to chase the thrill a little bit. You're probably in that mood, I think, for the rest of the draft. So I think that does make a little bit of sense there. If the fact that they weren't able to trade up, and man, you know, you talk about the interior defensive linemen in this class. I mean, a lot of them were gone early, right? I mean, if they were going to stick on the interior defensive line, I know you mentioned like Shamar being somebody that they could have gone for as like an edge rusher, but I mean, Derek Harmon was the last of the big 4, I would say, and he got picked at 21. I mean, Mason Graham's off the board, Kenneth Grant's off the board, Walter Nolan's off the board, and then Derek Harmon went at 21. And so I think if you're Detroit, if you were thinking of interior defensive line at all, you were like, man, that run happened a lot earlier than I thought that it was, than they thought they were going to. Williams does make sense for them because he was somebody that they had in for a top 30 visit. He makes sure that the run defense floor of this team, as they rotate guys in and out, will not be a question. Now, again, is he going to develop into the pass rusher that you think will be a major difference maker, a guy who could be a total 3-down lineman for you? Maybe not, but I think in this rotation, the way that Detroit is currently constructed, how they're already in a winning window, this is a complementary depth piece to what they already have on the roster with Aleem McNeil, with DJ Reader, with those guys. And Reader obviously is north of 30. So I think that getting Williams behind him and to be the long-term option for them as that stout interior player in the middle, I do think that makes sense, though. So, for Detroit, it doesn't always work out where you get the perfect scenario where you can either trade up for a player or somebody falls to you. Like, again, if they were thinking interior defensive line, a lot of those guys were already gone, and they were gone pretty early. I would have thought it would be difficult for Detroit to trade all the way up above where Derek Harmon got picked at number 21. And then for the edge rushers, yeah, they just weren't able to sort of do the same. And so to not get too trade happy and just trade up for anybody, I like the fact that they were able to sit where they were at and get a player that helps out their depth.
How stunned were you, or maybe you weren't, that Mike Green fell all the way to actually 2 picks behind where the Lions were taking? I mean, Lions passed on him not once, but twice.
Yeah, he's sort of a player who, given the off-field stuff, some things that happened in high school, some sexual assault allegations against him when he was in high school, the same sort of reports of him when he was at Virginia before he goes over to Marshall. I mean, it was just going to be different for every single team. Very clearly, like the Baltimore Ravens, they said, okay, we've done our due diligence. We feel good enough to take him here. But I guarantee that he was just off of a lot of teams' boards. And maybe the Lions were one of those teams where it was like, hey, we need a pass rusher, but we're just not going to consider this guy because we just don't like what we found out when we did some digging, some more research therein on him. And so it was sort of a situation where talent-wise, tape-wise, this is a first-round player, but very clearly lasting all the way he did to the Baltimore Ravens, getting him in the second round. He just was not for every team. And there were a lot of teams in the league who just did not have them on their board whatsoever.
You mentioned Tesla before. I mean, local kid. It's a great story. Moving from 102 up into the 70s to get him. Certainly, like you said, a risk. I know you were at the Senior Bowl. He was blocking like crazy down there, watching a wide receiver do so much blocking. And that's what caught Brad Holmes' attention. What else catches your eye about this kid?
Yeah, I mean, he is a really good athlete for his size, very explosive. He showcased that at the combine. But the thing that I like the most about Tesla is the hands. I mean, you look at the last 2 years that he has been at Arkansas. We have a couple of different ways that we categorize catches. There's contested catches, but then we categorize catches into, catchable passes. And so like sometimes, it's a little bit of an in-between, a gray area. Okay, was this the quarterback's fault? But if it's, even if it's not placed perfectly by the quarterback, is it a catchable pass? Should the wide receiver, even though his arms had to be fully extended, did the ball hit him in the hands? Did he have an opportunity to catch it? And was he able to haul it in? For the last 2 years at Arkansas, even though the overall volume of targets, catches, and yards for him were down, he had a catchable passes caught percentage above 96 in both of those seasons. And a lot of times when you look at wide receivers, you're hoping that they have low 90s. Low 90 percentage is a good score for them. High 80s, okay, you could deal with that. But really, when you get in the mid and low 80s when it comes to catchable passes caught, you start going, okay, that's not ideal for you. Anything above 95% is excellent. I mean, that truly means that the ball is hitting your hands. You are coming away with it in almost all instances. So there are plenty of things to like about the Tesla pick. He's got good size. He's got good explosiveness. Like you said, he'll block his butt off for you, and he's got really reliable hands. So this pick could absolutely pan out. The debate is always just going to be, did it pan out for him being a third-round pick, or did it pan out for him being worth basically 3 third-round picks to move up? Well, not quite 3 third-round picks, but 3 additional third-round picks, and obviously jumping up 30 spots to get him where they did. So people are going to argue the value forever, but in terms of the football player they now have in the organization, I like guys like Tesla in this landing spot.
More with Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus, a draft expert. We'll do that coming up next. Always love catching up with our man, Trevor Sikkema, Locked On alumnus, and now doing great work for our friends at Pro Football Focus. You mentioned before about Hassanin and just the love fest that's happening in Detroit with him as a person. I mean, what a great story, and the interviews and what he told Dan Campbell on the phone, he would die for him. Why did he drop to the 6th round, though? What's the explanation you got? And after watching the tape, is it just that he just doesn't have enough moves yet, and he's just still raw of a talent to drop all the way to the 6th round?
I think it's a little bit of people wondering, like, how high is the ceiling for him? He's a little bit heavier handed of a defensive end. He's about 6'4", 265 pounds. So, I think when you watch a lot of edge rushers these days, they're kind of like, they're often more specialized players, right? They're either like close to 240 pounds and they're just these speed rushers that are going to have this incredible first step and get up the arc and around the offensive tackle, but they really can't hold the line of scrimmage too much for you. Or it's going to be these guys that are, 260, 270 and like, yeah, okay, they can hold the point of attack pretty well, but do they have the juice to be able to threaten the outside shoulder as much as you want? And I think that Hassanin just got caught up in not exactly having an area where you were easily able to point to it and say like, okay, yes, difference-making trait in the NFL. And I think that's why he fell all the way to the 5th round. But I think this is a really solid football player. I felt like he should have been a, early 4th round, early day 3 pick. And so getting him in the 5th round to me is pretty good value for him. Obviously, he's a guy who's got the mentality of somebody that you would want. He loves the game of football. He's not afraid of the physicality that is demanded to play in the trenches at the NFL level. And obviously, that's music to Dan Campbell, and Brad Holmes' ears. So I think that he has landed in a perfect spot in Detroit. They know how to use those heavier handed defensive end type of players. And I think that he is going to be a surprise for a lot of people. I expect Ahmed Hassanin to outperform his draft spot in his career.
Speaking of outperforming, was there a quarterback taken? I mean, we could talk about Cam Ward, but that'd be boring. And Shador, everybody's run that rap song over and over again. But what about, was there another quarterback that went certain spot that you went, man, I like that. I think he could play sooner rather than later?
I mean, I look at Will Howard, and Will Howard was QB4 for me in this class. And he goes to Pittsburgh in the 6th round, way later than I thought Will Howard was going to go. And we assume that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to sign Aaron Rodgers, but let's say they don't. I think Will Howard starts for this team. Yeah, I think he's QB2 for the Pittsburgh Steelers if Aaron Rodgers is there. And if Aaron Rodgers isn't, I genuinely think he starts the most games for them this upcoming season. So that's a landing spot that I absolutely loved. I was a big fan of that one. The Colts getting Riley Leonard, I think, is just another wrinkle into that quarterback controversy competition as well. I don't think that Riley Leonard's going to win that quarterback job or anything, but it makes it a little bit interesting because, if you thought highly of Riley Leonard, you probably saw a little bit of Daniel Jones in his game. And so now it's Daniel Jones, it's Riley Leonard, it's Anthony Richardson. It's these guys who have some good size to them, but are most importantly options where they could take off and they could run with their legs. And so those are two quarterbacks who their landing spots really intrigued me. I'm very interested to see how their rookie seasons and really just their rookie contracts pan out for them there.
Do your thoughts on the NFC and how it stacks up and what we saw a year ago? Obviously, Philly and Washington were at the top at the end. Lions had the best record during the regular season, but how do you as you look at the draft now, you see even in the division what Chicago, Minnesota, and Green Bay did, how do you stack up the NFC right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the NFC North, once again, one of the toughest divisions, if not the toughest division in the NFL. I think a lot of those teams got a lot better. The interesting one is Minnesota, right? Overachieving, and I don't say that insultingly. I mean that as praise of how well that team was able to play and rally around some young guys, some veterans, how that coaching staff was able to coach those players and played incredibly well last year. But anytime you change quarterbacks, it's always going to be a little bit of an unknown. And so I think that Minnesota, even for a great year that they had last year, they're a little bit of an unknown there. I think Green Bay will be a little bit better. Certainly, they've got to figure things out in their passing attack group because Christian Watson's, he's got his injuries. Romeo Doubs had the concussions as well. Dontavian Wicks really struggled with catching. And so you throw in Matthew Golden. Can he hit the ground running? Because they really need him to be able to do that. And then, of course, the defensive line's got to get a lot better in Green Bay. Chicago's the one, right? I mean, they're the big threat. They're the I know people sarcastically say Chicago's been the offseason champs for 3-4 years running. And
we say it every day on this show.
I get it. I understand, but holy cow, what a roster they have. And now I think they have a head coach that's going to be able to put it all together. And so I would honestly tell you that I think Chicago is the biggest threat to Detroit, although I would still say that they're the team to beat at the top. I think that Washington's still going to be great. Philly, obviously, is a juggernaut. I think Tampa is going to once again be the favorite to win their division in the NFC South. And then, it's going to be interesting to see how that NFC West shapes out. I like what Seattle is doing. Are they going to be able to hit the ground running with Sam Darnold? I think that the Rams are certainly going to be all in like they always are. Can the Cardinals really take that step up? What are the Niners going to be this year with their roster, being kind of up and down over the last couple of seasons? So the only real surprise team that I see this year, well, I'll give you two. I think that there's two surprise teams here. Chicago is the one that didn't perform well last year that I think has a chance to really perform well this year. And then I'm very intrigued by the Cardinals. Now, I've believed in the Cardinals before and I've kind of gotten burned, but this really is the make or break year for Kyler Murray, because I thought last year we were going to see a version of Kyler Murray that was closest to what he was as an MVP candidate before he tore his ACL. I thought we were going to see the closest version to that, and we really didn't. And if he looks more or less the same this year to what he looked in 2024, I think if you're Arizona, you start to think to yourself, okay, he's shown us his ceiling, and we probably need to think about maybe investing in a different quarterback at some point in time to try to get over the hump, try to get in the playoffs, try to win this division, and try to make a Super Bowl run. So Arizona, I like a lot of what they've done. I think Jonathan Gannon, the defensive head coach, should have a lot of new toys to work with there on that defensive side of the ball. And if Kyler Murray can continue to get better and have an even better year this year than he had last year, I think that Arizona is a little bit of a sleeper team in the NFC.
One thing I skipped on the lines I want to end with, Ratledge, Graham Glasgow, Christian Mahogany. Basically, those three guys, although you like Miles Frazier too, those guys in the mix for 2 guard spots. How do you see it playing out as the Lions go through camp?
Yeah, I think that Glasgow's probably going to get at least one of those spots just as the vet, right? And I think that it really just comes down to what type of a run blocking scheme they want to have. If they want to be more of a heavy-handed power running scheme between the tackles, I would probably tell you that Glasgow is going to be one of those offensive guards, and then Mahogany or Miles Frazier is going to get that other spot. But if they want to do more outside zone, mid zone run scheme concepts, Tate Ratledge is your guy. He's a really smooth, explosive athlete from that guard spot. I think that he's good enough at the point of attack where you can run plenty of power concepts as well. But if you're maining those zone heavy concepts, he's the guy that you want to lean on there. So it really just depends on what type of run scheme they want to main here in 2025. And I think they've got a buffet of interior offensive linemen to choose from to be able to run whatever they want.
Lions feel pretty good about their draft. So does that man, Trevor Sikkema, joining us today on this Monday edition. Trev, always a pleasure, my friend.
Appreciate it, Matt. Anytime.
Trevor Sikkema, follow him, please, at Tampa Bay TRE on Twitter. And like his stuff, read his stuff at PFF. Does a great, great job. This has been a Monday Locked On Lions.